Hello and welcome to the Arsenal Way. Back again with you guys for another episode of our Pressbox series. I'm very happy to be joined, as always, by Kaya Kaynak. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
I'm very good. I'm enjoying the sun. I'm melting a little bit in this heat, but I am having a good time. How about yourself?
Yeah, not bad. It's just that classic British thing of, we rarely get really nice weather, but modern day Britain, and then we complain about it when we get it. But that's how it works. But we're going through we're about to go through another heat wave as well. So stay safe, stay hydrated wherever you happen to be in the world, of course, and we'll try and get through it. Today's show is obviously a bit of a transfer special, of course, but we'll be looking, of course, ahead as well to the game against Leicester City. But to do the transfer chat first, quite a lot of outgoings, Kaya. Of course, you reported this morning, Pablo Marie. There's an expectation that will be announced very soon, potentially today, his move to Monza, and also that the clause, if they stay up, could include around €7 million worth of money for Arsenal, which, despite the fact we paid more for him, still feels pretty good in the context of what we've got for some other players this summer.
Yeah, I think we're adjusting our expectations as to what quantifies a good sale based on those Torreira deals, the Leno deal, which obviously wasn't great. This seems better when you consider that next season Pablo Marie will have 1 year left on his deal. Monza aren't a particularly rich club. Serie A is not exactly known for its millions right now, and I think Monza are towards the bottom end of even that. So to get €7 million for him is decent. Murray wanted to go back to Italy. That was always his preference. He had a great time with Udinese last season. Udinese decided they didn't want him. Their new manager didn't want him, but their current sort of Monza guys do want him, and I think it's a good move for Arsenal. He was never going to play this season, was he? I mean, Saliba's come back and been excellent. Gabriel is the first choice player on that left side of the defence, and Ben White and Tomiyasu are there too. So good move for all round, and we're expecting that to go through relatively soon. €7 million. I mean, let us know what you think in the comments as to whether you think that's a good bit of business. I'm going back and forth on it myself every couple of minutes.
Yeah, I loved it. We were in a chat internally just to give people a glimpse behind the curtain, and our colleague Cash saying, is it a good deal? You paid so much more for him at the start, and you're right. But, in the context of the deals we've done, it feels better, at least, and it feels like we might be getting. But if, of course, Monza go down, which is a realistic possibility because, they've newly come up last season. They've done a few deals like this where they brought players on loan that will join if they manage to stay up. Extra incentive or reward for them to stay up, I suppose. But yeah, they're an interesting side. I think, did Balotelli used to play for Monza? I think he moved there. I'm going to do a quick Google check on that. But I think
I'm not sure.
It was Monza, 2020-21 season. Played 12 times, scored 5 goals. He now plays for Adana Demirspor. So there you go. Yeah. Interesting indeed. The other, obviously, outgoings at the moment, we've seen, as you mentioned, Torreira, Leno have all moved on as well. But there are a few players that are on the cusp of or potentially still awaiting further inquiries. Bellerin, let's talk about. Supposedly his agent was in London over last week or this week, really. I forget, we're already at Thursday at this point. But yeah, his agent was in London, but there was no agreement found, it seems, at this stage. And Arsenal holding firm on wanting a transfer fee at the moment. Do you think they're playing a little game of chicken at this stage?
Maybe. I mean, you wouldn't expect Arsenal to be putting out there, or for any sources around Arsenal to be revealing anything other than the fact that they want a fee for him, because they do. And every club wants a fee for a player who's of Hector Bellerin's quality, who has a year left in his contract. And Arsenal, we spoke to Edu in the summer, and his sort of way of spinning it was investments by terminating these contracts, which I guess makes sense. But at the same time, by terminating the contracts of players like Mesut Ozil, like Aubameyang, like Mustafi, Sokratis, Kolasinac, and I'm sure there's a few I've missed, you set a rod for your own back, really, in the sense that in the future, with players like a Hector Bellerin, who has 1 year left in his deal, no chance of really ever playing for Arsenal again, because if you look at Ben White, Tomiyasu, that spot is pretty locked down at the minute, and that's before we mentioned Cedric as sort of the third choice. He's got no chance of playing for Arsenal really this season. So, yeah, what do Real Betis do? Are they going to be the suckers who pay a couple of million for him, or are they going to try and get him on a free? I know what I would do if I was in Betis' shoes, and Arsenal have shown that they're willing to let these contracts be terminated. So why would Betis sort of try and approach the situation any differently? I think, in fairness to them, this Pablo Marie deal does sort of prove that that's something Arsenal are desperately trying to move away from. And, they are still hopeful of getting a fee. That's the information I've heard, but we'll see whether they're able to do that. I think the player wants to go to Real Betis. Real Betis want him. There's an enormous amount of goodwill for Hector Bellerin at Arsenal. Obviously, he's been at the club for 10 years, played with Mikel Arteta. That's how long he's been at the club. But, I think if Arsenal will want to do what's best for them, and they'll try and get a fee. Whether they can, I'm not so sure.
Jabu says, Bellerin weirdly is the only player you could terminate a contract for. Excellent servant in and off the fields. I completely understand what Jabu's saying there, and I think that, it's fair that we try and get a fee, but if it's a case of we can't, probably saving the 5 million-ish euros or pounds that we would save on his wages is a benefit that we would get if we do allow him to terminate his deal. You spoke to Edu in the US, and he talked about used the word investment, in talking about kind of paying off contracts. Do you feel as though this summer is kind of a cut-off point for Arsenal and this era of outgoings, with kind of the following summer, or maybe the summer after next summer, because we may still have the likes of Pepe, etc. at the club that could yet move on for a small fee. Other young players, who knows? Reece Nelson could even still be here. I know he's only got, I think, a year left, but who knows? You could see another year extension. Maitland-Niles in the same kind of situation. Who knows what's going to happen with him? You've got the likes of Cedric, of course, Mohamed El Neni, whose deal I think will expire at the end of this coming season and then may extend. Who knows? Yeah. And then you've got Granit Xhaka, of course, a long-term servant. We don't know what might happen with him in a year. So potentially, let's say, after this season and then another season in 2 summers' time, could you think the exits from Arsenal are going to be significantly different to what we see now?
That's certainly the plan for Arsenal. I think the players you mentioned there, they're probably the last of this current generation of players who will be allowed to sort of let their contracts dwindle and terminate their contracts. Edu used specifically the example of Gabriel, who's attracted interest in Barcelona and Juventus reportedly this summer. And he said, look, if teams want to try and buy Gabriel, we've got him under contract. He's our player. He's happy here. He's on good wages. Do your worst. And I think that's a strong position for Arsenal to be in. And that's where they want to be in with all their players. And they're building towards that. That's why they're investing in these young players, because they want players whose value is going up, not going down. And the likes of Pepe, the likes of arguably Xhaka as well, their value is sort of deteriorating with time just because of age. That's how this kind of works. And Eddie was as blunt as to say sort of players over the age of 25 who are not playing regularly, they're killing you, is the word he used. So
yeah.
It's pretty blunt about things, and it's hard to disagree. Obviously, there are clubs who are pretty good at selling those kind of players, but I think Arsenal are in a position now where their squad's a bit slimmer. They don't have as many players who are so clearly out of the picture. Mikel Arteta can quite rightly say, "Look, this guy's part of my plans with some of these guys in the future," and that will make it a lot more difficult to sell and a lot more difficult for Arsenal to be accepting of a contract termination. So they do want to stop it in the future. But I think it's something we're going to see probably this summer and maybe next summer as well.
Agreed. Let's round off the outgoings on kind of those 2 that I did mention, Reece Nelson, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. What's your understanding with those 2 right now?
No real surprises. Both have 1 year left on their deal. Arsenal are willing to listen to offers for both. Whether teams come in and are willing to pay, again, a whole nother situation, because, Arsenal I made it pretty clear. I know Nelson was on the bench against Palace, but Maitland-Niles wasn't, for example. And you think, if in the current situation where the likes of Smith Rowe, Tomiyasu, Vieira, and there's a 4th player whose name has split my mind in terms of the injuries, are not available.
Tomiyasu, Vieira, Smith Rowe, and it was Tierney who was the other one.
Tierney, yeah. So, okay, Tierney turned out to be available. But if those 3 aren't available and the likes of Maitland-Niles still aren't getting in the squad, then, yeah, clearly they have no future at Arsenal by the looks of things. We said that about Maitland-Niles quite a few times, and that's turned out not to be the case. But I do think this time he is on his way out of the club. That might be one that dwindles until the final days of the transfer window, when a team comes in and says, look, we'll give you a couple of million for him, and Arsenal have no choice but to accept. So they're ones that will dwindle. Arsenal are open to offers. No surprises there. And a similar thing with Alex Runarsson, who has longer on his contract and is getting a bit closer to a move to Turkey. So good for him. I think he's someone who won't necessarily be remembered for his legacy at Arsenal, but Arsenal can get a couple of million for him or any sort of fee for him, then they've done well there.
I've seen a couple of conflicting reports about whether that's a loan or permanent. Have you got any insight on either, or are we just still waiting for?
All options are open at the minute. It's still it's not quite as advanced. What I've heard at least is it's not quite as advanced as maybe some reports have made it seem. That's not saying that those reports are wrong. It's just what I've heard. But so there's still a way to go, and there's still negotiations being done. So, for example, the Pablo Mari thing, the loan was only confirmed with the obligation to buy this morning. So, it takes time, these kind of deals. We've known about Pablo Mari, Monza's interest in Pablo Mari for weeks now, but the loan, sort of the obligation to buy it was only confirmed today. So it takes a while, and we'll see what the Turkish club decide to do.
Indeed. A Clockwork Tangerine, one of our favourite names listeners, says, with Nelson and Maitland-Niles having 1 year left, it seems odd that we would loan these players. I get that, but there was that weird situation with Guendouzi, wasn't there? Guendouzi had like a 1 year +1 or something strange around his contract when we loaned him to Marseille. It wasn't 100% sure how long was left upon the expiration, but because there was an obligation, it just meant that they basically paid a fee. I imagine that there'd be something similar. Sorry, go on.
No, I believe it was 2 years for Guendouzi
2 years.
When he left. But loans do seem odd for him. But for Maitland-Niles and Nelson, that's a very good point. But Arsenal don't want them to stick around. I think Arteta's policy is sort of, if we can have players who are happy and involved, then fantastic. He said players need to feel involved to get the best out of them, and if they're not feeling involved, then they'll be difficult to have around the place, difficult to manage, is the words Arteta's used in the past. So I think Reiss Nelson, Maitland-Niles, it's a shame because they're two academy products who, if Arsenal sold them a couple of years ago, would have made them a lot of money, and this summer it looks like they're going to go for next to nothing. So that's something they're learning from, and hopefully it's something they'll improve in the future.
Indeed. There's over 200 of you watching. Please do drop a like on the video. You can follow Kaya on Twitter at Kaya Kaynak 95, 6, 7, 7. There we go. 97.
I'm giving off the maturity that you go 94. Very happy with that.
Yeah, mine used to be Tom Canton or T Canton 94. And then I realized just, giving away my age just never did any favors whatsoever. So it's just Tom Canton Media now if you want to go for it. And I've just realized it's on the screen. I don't know why I struggle with it so much. So make sure you give us a follow. You can find the Arsenal Way as well at the Arsenal Way N5, and make sure you check out the written work of football.london. If you are not seeing your questions answered in today's show, and we're going to be answering a fair few more before we wrap things up, you can go over and click the link that I've just now left in the chat box on both Facebook and YouTube, and myself and Kyle will be endeavouring to tackle as many of the questions on our Q&A link there. So if we don't tackle your question, or if you think of another one, throw it into the chat box there and throw it into that link that we've just sent in, and we will give it a go. Let's talk. Sorry, go on, Kyle.
No, I was just going to say we can give some more in-depth answers in those ones as well. When they're written, you get a chance to sort of think it through, and you don't forget about things. So, I think if you've got any questions you want answered in depth, then definitely go to that Q&A.
Absolutely. Let's tackle the kind of incoming stuff. And there's obviously, naturally, as there is right now, a lot of questions about Youri Tielemans. Let's take away the question from Kaya Kaynak, who says, hey guys, what a great work you guys are doing there. And thank you for all the good work. But my question is, what is holding up for the signing of Youri Tielemans coming to the Gunners? Well, thank you, mate. And Kaya is going to give the best possible answer he can on Youri Tielemans. So go on, mate.
Youri Tielemans is a question we get asked every week, isn't it? And it's kind of a situation where nothing's changed over the past couple of months. You reported the other day that Arsenal are willing to wait because they feel they're the only team sort of in the picture realistically for his signature. Youri Tielemans wants European football if he can get it. And obviously the other teams who are interested, I think you said Newcastle were among the teams interested. They can't offer that. Manchester United can, but it's not quite clear whether they're that interested in Tielemans at the minute. So, we'll see what happens with him. Yeah, keep an eye on it. I know it wasn't very popular, the fact that we said that Arsenal are willing to wait, but, I think it's a smart ploy from Arsenal. If they can drive the price down as much as possible, then do it. It's what other teams are doing to them, so why not do it themselves? Like, it works, and it's something to reduce the transfer fee for a player who is quality. Although I myself have a controversial opinion that I think Albert Samuel Lokonga is doing a good job in that left side of midfield, and I think Fabio Vieira and Martin Odegaard. I know I've got to watch what I say on these streams, but I think Arsenal are relatively stacked in the midfield positions, and if they go out and get another player, then Tielemans is a fantastic player and would bring amazing depth. But I'm not 100% sure he's a necessity, and he's sort of viewed as an icing on the cake type player for me.
Yeah, indeed. Neil says, we are in for Tielemans. Is it good to send Sambi on loan? A loan for Smith Rowe and Saliba done them good. You know, I think Sambi is very well appreciated within the club. You know, that's what I wrote in the piece. And today, you know, provided an update on that position's not changed. You know, the club still see him as a great option. He sees his future very much at Arsenal, despite these links with AC Milan coming out of Italy. Tielemans could, you know, be in competition with Sambi, because you've reported as well, of course, that Arsenal were very impressed with how he dealt with being played further up the field in a position that Tielemans would, of course, occupy. So, and for the national team, they would both be in competition as well with one another for that potential spot. I would say that Lokonga has more experience playing on the left-hand side of a central midfield than Tielemans does, because Tielemans played a lot actually on the right for Leicester. I know he's played a lot on the left for Belgium, but yeah, Lokonga at club level at least has played more on the left when he's been paired with, say, Thomas Partey. He's played on the left-hand side. So that's something to certainly consider. I, like you, feel it shouldn't be controversial to say that Lokonga is a good player, you know, and he's got a lot about him. And I think people forget very quickly a lot of his performances from the first half of last season because it was so long ago. And when Granit Xhaka was out with his injury, Lokonga covered really well, you know, in a lot of games. Yeah. And I feel it's only when
noticed his absence, Granit Xhaka, who's such a fantastic player, and Lokonga was the main reason for that.
And I think it's only when he's really exposed because he's played in that lone six. And I remember the game against Brighton at home when Xhaka went to left back and Lokonga was in that lone six. It just completely exposed him. So that hopefully will change next season, but we'll have to wait and see if Tielemans does end up at Arsenal. But yeah, you're seeing reports every day about Tielemans, I know, but very little is changing in reality. And of course, when anything does change, we will be letting you know that it has. The other big name at the moment is Youri Pino, Kaya. Reports from Spain have suggested that Arsenal have an interest. Goal España reported that Arsenal's interest could change in the coming weeks as the window ticks down. No one's being overly committal in kind of reporting Arsenal as a potential bidder. But what do you feel about the player? And of course, anything you've heard around this?
I've not heard anything around Youri Pino, unfortunately, so I can't add too much in terms of the transfer. But, you know, Goal España are a pretty reliable source, so make of that what you guys will. But, yeah, I remember him coming on against Arsenal in the Europa League semi-final for Villarreal a couple of years ago. And he did some damage to the Arsenal, and I think he was 19 at that time, maybe 18, 19.
He was 17, 18.
17, wow, yeah. Okay, there you go. And yeah, a very, very impressive young player, I thought. And he was very direct. And he's gone on to have a fantastic season with Villarreal last season. Obviously, you know, Emery connection is there. So that could help things. But
can it? I'm not sure he's that keen on Arsenal from a video I saw the other day.
Some Arsenal fans he's not too keen on. I think he's
very true.
But yeah, you know, he's clearly a good player, and he would appear to fit the profile. He can play sort of false nine, left wing, right wing. So that would make sense as far as those kind of transfers go. But we'll have to wait and see on that one, because we've seen a lot of wingers linked this summer, and not all of them have turned out to be accurate. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see. I think he's a good player and will be a good addition to the Arsenal squad.
Indeed. Yeah, I got a piece about how missing out on Rafinha has drastically changed kind of Arsenal's attempts to try and bring in a wide player this summer, because he being the priority was such a standout option that beyond him, it's looked quite tricky to find a player that they feel is enough or good enough to invest in. Pino's a really interesting player because, and we did a piece yesterday after we spoke to Spanish football expert Alvaro Romeo talking about how he sees Santi Cazorla in him quite a lot when he was playing in a wide area in his younger years at both Recreativo, Huelva and Villarreal before he went to Malaga and started to transition into more of a central midfielder. He sees kind of that same thing in Pino, that he could be more of a central player. So who knows? They might be looking at him as someone that they feel could be invested in, and that wouldn't necessarily stop them from investing in a wide player in the future because he could be transitioned. So that's an interesting thing to consider with him as well. Yeah, and regarding transfers, that's kind of all the main stuff at the moment. I know that people want to know more about central midfield and those wide areas, but really it is quite quiet at the moment in regards to incomings, because Arsenal are very much focused on getting players out of the club to then refocus their attempts to bring players in those final few weeks, or not even few, but couple of weeks of the window that still remain. And so our final part of today's chat will focus on the game at the weekend. Ange in the chat says, will Fabio Vieira be able to play against Leicester City. He's been pictured in training, Kaya. Things are looking good. We have a press conference tomorrow that you'll be attending, of course, but it's looking good for Fabio Vieira.
Yeah, I don't think I'd expect him to start because I think the team is actually pretty settled right now, which is unusual for the first game of the season. But obviously, Arsenal played the same starting 11 in their last 2 pre-season friendlies against Chelsea and Sevilla. So this team has started 3 games in a row. I'd expect them to make that 4, assuming there's any fresh injury concerns. So Vieira could be available on the bench, and I think he'd be a welcome addition to the squad. I'm really fascinated to see what Arteta views him as, because none of us know.
Yeah.
We're deciding, is he a left winger? Is he a right winger? Is he a potential false 9? Will he be one of the 8s? Will he be a 6? I've heard some people saying. So,
wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. When we sort of see what Fabio Vieira is, and I think we can start to maybe reassess a little bit about Arsenal's transfer policies and priorities, because they've been very tight-lipped when it comes to try and get information out of them this summer. And, if Fabio Vieira is that midfield 8, if that's how they view him, then, you can start putting more emphasis on, I guess, players being linked in the wing positions and vice versa. So he's an interesting one to keep an eye out on. I think he will have an impact on the Arsenal transfer strategy, just not have an impact, not as in him playing will have an impact, but just where he plays will sort of have an impact on what we can expect Arsenal to do in the final few weeks of the window.
Indeed, he's very, very versatile, and what he's done at Porto, he's probably been slept on quite a bit, because I think he's not played, and we've not seen what he's like. And if he was to say come in and suddenly operate on the right-hand side and say Saka comes off and Fabio goes in the right-hand side for the rest of, say, last 20, 30 minutes or so of the game and has an absolute stormer, suddenly we're thinking, do we need to bring in a wide player? Because we've got this Fabio guy who we've spent a lot of money on, and I think that's a potential option to see him play. I mean, he's left-footed. He's going to be an inverted player if he goes on that right. It's very similar to Saka, so it seems quite like for like. Also could play instead of Ødegaard if we wanted to bring him off, because he plays in more of an attacking role. Let's go into the chat box. Clockwork Tangerine says, same lineup, please, and thank you. I don't expect there to be too many changes in the lineup. I don't think that's what we're expecting to see.
Zinchenko would be the only one I'd expect. If it did happen, it wouldn't surprise me too much, but even that, I'm not really expecting it, to be honest.
But what I want to ask you about is the bench, because for the first time in a long time, Arsenal are in a situation where they're going to have to leave some players who you wouldn't really expect to be out of the squad on a Premier League match day out of the team. If the same team that plays the game against Crystal Palace and they play again this weekend, we could have a situation where we've got Turner, Tomiyasu, Tierney, Cedric as kind of 3 players. So you'd think maybe one of those might miss out, and you probably lean towards Cedric of the 3, but Arteta loves that guy, so who knows? You've got El Neni and Lokonga as deep midfield options. You've got Smith Rowe and Fabio Vieira as attacking midfield options. You've got Reece Nelson and Nicolas Pepe as wide options, and Eddie Nketiah as a striker option, and you've got Rob Holding. So of all of those, 2 are going to have to miss out. So who are the 2 going to be for you, Kaya?
Oh, man. You forgot Marquinhos as well, who was very impressive for the 21s.
You were there,
we'll see. I think if he's involved on Friday when they play West Ham, then that'll be a sign as to whether he's involved against Leicester or not. Oh, God. I'm not sure they'll rush back Tomiyasu. There's not much point in having him on the bench if he's not fit to play. Yeah. So maybe they'll give him another few minutes for the 21s, which is sort of a cop-out because it avoids me having to make any hard decisions if I use fitness as an excuse. And okay, I'll try and avoid using the same excuse for Smith Rowe. So let's say... Oh, it's tough, man. It's tough. I
think it'll be Cedric and Holding, personally.
Okay. I'm going to go Reece Nelson and Takahiro Tomiyasu.
Okay. Yeah, it's maybe even Reece Nelson's. I think maybe 3 miss out. I was trying to count on the top of my head, but you can have, 9 subs, I think.
I'm going to use my bad maths as an excuse not to make any hard decisions. So we'll
Yeah, but I love the fact that, we're in this situation. I'd even mention Maitland-Niles. He's another one that also is in the squad as well. So you could miss as many as 5 first-team players, which is what you would because we've got a 25-man squad, of course. So, and there'd only be 9 on the bench. But yeah, it's nice that we are having these discussions because Arsenal, have needed that strength in depth for a really long time. I'm really putting you on the spot here, but do you know when the Europa League draw is? Do we know when the group stage draw is? I'm going to
final week of August on a Friday. I want to say I can't tell you the specific date. I feel like that's when it is. Let me.
I'm just googling now. Group stage is not being told to me by this website. I was hoping when it says group stage draw, it would tell me when it is. I can go on. Sorry.
I think the 26th of August.
The first group stage game is on the 8th of September. So a few days after the game, I believe, at Old Trafford. So that's when we can expect plenty of changes to the squad and rotation and stuff like that. I'm not sure when the third round of the Carabao Cup. I think that's also
November.
That's November. Oh, they've really pushed that back.
Yeah, it's quite late.
And then, of course, we have the World Cup on the 20th of November. So that's going to be really delayed into the season. So the final must be taking place in something like April or May.
No, I think the finals, there's going to be a lot of games around the festive period, and there's going to be a lot of games in November as well. There's international breaks in September and October, which does make things even more congested. So there's all of that to consider. I'm pretty sure it's November. It might be October. Now I'm thinking about it, but I'm pretty sure it's November.
Yeah, it still says that the Carabao Cup final will take place on February 26, 2023. So that is going to be a lot of games. A lot of games is going to happen during that kind of Boxing Day onwards period. Because I think Boxing Day is the return of the Premier League after the World Cup. So, yeah, a lot of football to be played. And you can be sure that we will be covering plenty of it. Diallo says, Tom, why can't I send a super chat? It's a good question. I will chase up why you can't send a super chat and find out. I don't control anything here, so I will have to go to the people that do. But Kaya, thank you so much for coming on the show as always, mate. Tell people where they can find you and what you're going to be up to.
Yes, I'm on Twitter at Kaya Kaynak 97. Instagram is at Kaya Kaynak, and then Facebook is Kaya Kaynak Journalist. We've got a Q&A going, guys, so check that out. Get your questions in. Tom and I will answer as many of them as we can. If we didn't get any questions of yours in this stream, then please do get your questions in on that, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. What else we got coming? Press conferences tomorrow. Leicester is on Saturday, so all that kind of stuff, all that good stuff over the weekend, which will of course be on the football.london website.
I've got the day off on Saturday, but unfortunately, because Arsenal games are so in demand, I can't go. So I haven't been able to get a ticket. So I'm going to have to be trying to get hold of some way to see it. So I might be peeking over the Emirates is what I'm going to be doing to try and get a glimpse of the game.
Doing what Lisandro Martinez can't.
Yeah, I saw a friend of the show, FK's Latte Firm edit of the lineup for Man United. It's just Martinez's head poking over the top of the thing. It's brilliant. Yes, wonderful scenes. But thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. As Kai said, I've left a link to our Q&A. If you had another question that we didn't tackle on the show, go to that link, sign up on the website, and then leave a comment, and myself or Kaya will endeavour to get back to you as quickly as we can. We'll be able to see plenty of content across both the press conference and the match day, as Kaya said, on football.london, so make sure you are fully attentive to what's going on over there. We'll see you again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for the next Arsenal Agenda series, and as always, keep following us down the Arsenal way.
49, undefeated, playing for glory, Arsenal way.